Do we need freedom of expression? Years ago, when I was just a young boy, I was introduced to South Park. It was shown on Comedy Central that contained comedy, vulgarity, satire, and sharp humor. I enjoyed it because it pulled punches on anyone and anything. They made me realize something that was unknown to me. Do people find this offensive? And if it is, should it be censored? In my humble opinion, nothing should be censored. Everything should be questioned. Freedom of expression should know no boundaries. Free democratic societies rely on freedom of expression and should not care whether or not they offend religious, political, racial person of a specific background. The only way for a true free society can progress if individuals decide for themselves what they should and should not say and not rely on the government to tell them what to do. As long as it does not promote violence and does not encourage in dialogue in order for ideas to be shared and remove ideas that do not promote the individual, the society. So yes, freedom of expression is needed because people must be heard. You must allow artistic or ideal creation of thought for the individual to excel. It creates a more ideal society in which a government can and cannot allow what should be said. It creates an ethical responsibility for the individual in the society to decide what is good and what is bad. Jesu Samuel, a phrase that went viral all over social media over the French teacher and martyr Samuel Paty. He was murdered on the defense of free speech, showing the students a comedic drawing of a religious prophet. He did not draw it. He was a freedom of expression teacher that promoted tolerance of different races and ethnicities in France. Though I do not support the satire of any religion, he should be allowed to show the drawings and teach students about tolerance of expression. And it should not have been murdered. Yes, people were angry at the drawings and were angry at the murders, but a free society will allow people to express anything they want, so as long as it does not extort, exploit, or harass people. The people who drew it was a newspaper that is anti-racist, anti-capitalist, and anti-authoritarian Charlie Hebdo, who were exercising their universal right of freedom of expression. Expression should never be forbidden, and if it does, it risks your own life. For a person must be allowed to think, they must risk being offensive. This is an ethical dilemma when talking about what should be said and what should not be said. Should people have the right to offend and should people be allowed to think a certain way? What about hate groups? This will only promote violence. People say these things in order for a government to suppress the rights of an individual. The individual creates a society, is part of society, and is society. People on opposite sides of the spectrum bring out the worst in humanity, which creates tension, hinders progress, and leads to authoritarianism. Politicians make laws in order to discriminate against the individual's idea to think, process, and discuss with peers. There should be no laws on what speech should and should not do. The only way a society can be ethical is if it respects the individual's own ethics and allows them to discuss in a rational dialogue and with reason and evidence that cannot be denied. There is an invisible attraction in society which binds people together, calls for universal brotherhood in all men, surpassing ethnic, religious, political, and economic barriers that promotes tolerance, acceptance, and respect without requiring government to judge for the people how one out individual behave, and instead calls for an individual to judge their cognitive thinking and then discuss ideas with each other. People beg for freedom of expression instead of freedom of thought, in which they lack. Government, the rights of an individual should not be infringed as long as they shall not say anything offensive toward the top percentage of the elites. So every dictatorship in the 20th century. They remove the idea that they can be criticized, accounted for, responsible for, or even replaced in government. So they dilute the masses with so-called social equality and remove all the responsibility of the individual. Hitler, Stalin, Pot, these men were in favor of free speech that they liked and removed, purged, and murdered people that were against their idea of utopia. More like dystopia, depending on who you ask. If a government wants to be feared, they would criminalize any expression that they see fit, which does not go along with the idea of utopia. For a government to be respected by the masses and be respected even by dictatorships, they must follow all expression. A government that allows all injustice to happen will affect future generations and believe that the act of not being allowed to think and thinking of a said act is already an act of subordination and an act of subjugation of thought. Government is run for the individual, and by the individual mustn't let their expression be given up for temporary security. They said art is the ultimate form of expression. Artists manifest their ideas and their interpretation of reality and reveals it to the world. So does the comedian, the architect, the dancer, the musician, the individual. All of these professions are the artists displaying the human condition without restraint, without fear, without remorse. Artists who are focused on here and now, precise in what they are doing, caring not who they offend and the backlash they may receive, for they are inviting people to view their interpretation of truth with their main and objective goal being to leave them moved then once they found them. Goya, Lenin, Da Vinci, artists in their profession that reveals to the world their ideas at the expense of them being ridiculed, harassed, targeted, and murdered. That is the ultimate goal of an artist. Everyone in the society is an artist if they are allowed to contemplate, discuss, and present for there is no true definition of an artist, and no artist can really show their true definition without expression. But the suffering, people have been harassed by the media and groups for believing in certain things. Should everyone deserve a chance to be heard? Hate groups should not be allowed to be heard because their speech is violence. Humans do not possess the right to insult, hurt, hurl, or intimidate people because of their background. There must be some sort of limit to what a person can express. Expression is the ultimate truth for humanity. The exploration of ideas among others is the only way humanity can progress. The understanding, the tolerance, and confidence what an individual truly believes must be respected, encouraged, and challenged by society. Individual responsibility for an expression in society's response must be met with respect on both ends in order for a truly free society to function. All must be heard, artistic creation must be excelled, and no authority to prevent good or bad expression, and the importance of the ethical responsibility of the individual and the need to express oneself. Thank you.